You see these massive ships crisscrossing the oceans every day, right? They're carrying literal mountains of material, everything from iron ore to grain. But have you ever stopped to think about what keeps all that stuff safe? How do we make sure those mountains of cargo don't turn into a deadly hazard out at sea? Well, the answer is in this super important but kind of behind-the-scenes rulebook, the International Maritime Solid Bulk Cargoes Code. And guess what? It just got a massive update for 2024.
So here's how we're going to unpack this. First, we'll get into the very real dangers these cargoes can pose. Then we'll talk about the global rulebook that keeps them in check and how it breaks down risk into simple categories. After that, we're going to dive deep into the biggest threat of them all, liquefaction. We'll also look at who's actually responsible for safety. And finally, we'll see why this whole code just got a complete top-to-bottom overhaul. All right, let's start at the very beginning. How can a giant pile of what looks like simple dirt or sand become one of the single biggest dangers on a huge modern cargo ship? A danger that has, tragically, cost lives and taken down entire vessels. It all boils down to this one kind of mind-bending question. I mean, it sounds impossible, doesn't it? But under just the right, or I guess the wrong conditions, a cargo that looks perfectly solid can suddenly start behaving like a fluid. And the results can be absolutely catastrophic for the ship and everyone on board. And listen, this is not just some theoretical what-if scenario. The code itself, in black and white, states that improper handling leads to real-world accidents. This is the hard lesson learned from tragedies at sea, from ships that have just rolled over or disappeared, all because their cargo suddenly shifted. This is the exact problem the IMSBC Code was created to stop.
So when you have a problem that affects ships from pretty much every country on Earth, you can't have a patchwork of different rules. You need one single global solution that everyone plays by.
And that solution is the IMSBC Code. Now, it's really important to get this. It's not just a collection of good ideas or recommendations. No, this is a mandatory standard. It's part of an international treaty called the Safety of Life at Sea, or SOLAS. That means it carries the full weight of international law. It's all about making sure that seafarers get home safely. And what's crucial to understand is that the code isn't some static document collecting dust on a shelf. It's alive. It evolves. This latest update, Amendment 0723, isn't just flipped on like a light switch. It's rolled out really carefully, starting with a voluntary period before it becomes mandatory for everyone in January 2025. This gives the whole shipping industry all around the world time to get up to speed with the new standards. So how does the code even begin to manage the thousands of different bulk materials being shipped every single day? Well, it starts with a pretty clever and simple system. It sorts every single one of them into one of three buckets. It's as simple as A, B, C. Group A are the ones we've been talking about, the cargoes that can liquefy. Group B covers materials with chemical hazards. You know, things that could catch fire, release toxic gas if they get wet, or even corrode the ship itself. And Group C, well, that's for everything else. The materials that are considered safe from those specific hazards. This simple ABC is the absolute foundation of safety. Okay, now let's zoom in on Group A, because liquefaction is, no joke, one of the most sudden and terrifying risks you can face in the entire world of shipping. So what exactly is it? The best way to picture it is to think of wet sand at the beach. You know how when it's just damp, it's solid, you can stand on it? But if it gets totally saturated with water, it becomes unstable, almost like quicksand. On a ship, the constant vibration from the engine and the rolling motion from the waves can actually squeeze the water that's trapped between the tiny particles of the cargo. When that happens, the entire hold can turn into this thick, heavy soup that can shift from one side to the other in a heartbeat. Let's break that down. First, the ship is always moving, right? That vibration slowly compacts the cargo, making the spaces between all the little particles smaller and smaller. This starts to squeeze the water that's trapped in there, which jacks up the water pressure like crazy. Eventually, that pressure gets so high it literally pushes the solid particles apart, destroying the friction that was holding the whole pile together. And in that one instant, it's not a solid anymore. It's a shifting, dangerous liquid.
So to stop this nightmare scenario, the code relies on one critical measurement, the TML, which stands for Transportable Moisture Limit. Think of it as the ultimate safety red line. It's the absolute maximum amount of moisture a cargo can safely have to be put on a ship. If the actual moisture level is even a tiny bit higher, that cargo cannot be loaded, period.
But you know, a rulebook is only as good as the people who actually follow it. And the code puts a huge amount of responsibility on one specific player in the whole supply chain. And that player is the shipper, the person or the company that's sending the cargo. The code is crystal clear on this. Their main job, their fundamental duty, is to know their cargo inside and out and to provide totally accurate, verified information to the ship's crew. Safety doesn't start at the port, it starts on shore, long before a single scoop of cargo is ever loaded.
And this declaration form is the absolute cornerstone of the whole safety system. The shipper has to provide all this key info, not just the name and weight, but things like the stowage factor, which is basically how much space it takes up. And for those risky Group A cargoes, two documents are completely non-negotiable: a certificate that states the safe transportable moisture limit and a separate declaration of the cargo's actual moisture content right at the time of loading. This isn't optional paperwork, it's the law.
So what this creates is this really crucial partnership. The shipper is responsible for getting the test done and providing accurate, signed-off data. But the ship's master, the captain, has the final word. The master has to have all this information before a single piece of cargo comes aboard, and they have the absolute right to refuse the cargo or just stop the entire operation if the paperwork isn't right or if they think something looks unsafe. It's a vital system of checks and balances.
So this brings us right to the new amendment. We've seen just how critical these rules are, so why did the entire global maritime community decide it was time to completely rewrite the rulebook? Because we have to be really clear about this. Amendment 0723 is not just a few tweaks or some minor edits. It is a complete and total replacement of the code that came before it. You don't have to take my word for it. This one, powerful line from the official document, says everything. The International Maritime Organization didn't just add a new chapter or two, they said the complete text is replaced. That signals a huge, coordinated effort to modernize, to clarify, and to strengthen these safety rules for the entire industry. So, why the complete overhaul? It's because global trade never, ever stands still. New materials are being developed and shipped in bulk all the time, and our scientific understanding of the risks is always getting better. This new update refines everything from how you test cargo to the technical definitions of terms, and it adds whole new sections for new cargoes. It's all about making sure the code keeps up with the real world to protect lives at sea.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This massive update tackles the challenges we face today, but it also shines a light on a constant reality. As technology and trade create brand new materials to ship across our oceans, the work of understanding their risks and regulating them safely is never really finished. It makes this code a vital, ever-evolving shield against the dangers of the sea.